And we are live coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Firmidable's webcast, Intake Precision, Stop Losing Leads, featuring our guest presenter from Alert Communications, Tom Ball. I'm Nathan Chapman, President at Firmidable. Before we get started, let's do some housekeeping. This webinar will be recorded, so you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to that recording. You'll also receive a webinar survey. We ask you to take a moment to complete it so we can continue to bring you the quality legal marketing educational programs that you want to hear. On this next slide, we've taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface that you can use today. You could submit questions or comments throughout the presentation by typing into the questions pane of the control panel. You can send in your questions at any time during the presentation. Thomas said it's okay for me to interrupt him, but we'll also have some Q&A at the end of today's session. Firmidable has invested heavily to develop what we believe is the nation's most effective legal marketing. But the one part where we have no control is what happens after that lead is generated. That's why our last webcast and this one today is focused on helping you maximize the conversion of leads into revenue-producing cases. With that, I'd like to introduce Tom Ball, Director of Sales and Marketing at Alert Communications. Since 1984, Tom has worked in an executive sales management capacity for two, not one but two, international multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies with 25,000 to 80,000 employees. While Tom has an impressive resume, I'd actually like to tell you what I saw firsthand and made me say, I need to invite Tom to present to you. I was a participant in a three-way phone call with Tom and a personal injury attorney who was running a paid search digital advertising campaign. The attorney was using his trusted paralegal to be on the front lines of handling the calls and the web leads generated by the campaign. In contrast, I hoped Tom's call center could generate more cases and revenue than the paralegal was doing alone. During this introductory call, the attorney complained about spam being generated by the campaign. Tom said, "Wait a minute, tell me more about the spam." The attorney replied, "Well, we have all kinds of leads who seem like callers, but when we go to talk to them, there's not a real person there." Tom paused for a moment and said, "That's not spam. That's people who've been on hold too long and hung up before your intake team got to them." If not for Tom's insight, I'd been trying to solve the spam problem. So I think that's lesson number one from this webcast. Too many attorneys and even the intake teams are confident they couldn't do better, but in reality, sometimes they don't really know entirely what's going on. So I could tell you additional true life stories, but you're here to listen to Tom, not me, so I'm going to turn it over to him. Ladies and gentlemen, the master of the legal call center world, I present to you Tom Ball.
Nice to meet everybody. We're Alert Communications. Just want to kind of give you an idea of what we do. Our experience basically is just doing law firms, and that's all we do is the communication services to work for them. The title of this is Intake Precision, Stop Losing Leads, and the reason why is that what we have found in working with marketing companies and with Firmidable is what we see basically are just gaps. And the gaps basically are with either with staffing or after hours, weekends and holidays, things like that, where it's just not possible for a law firm to staff financially and be able to respond to all their leads. And so I'm going to take this first, and I'm going to go ahead and just get this started with you and kind of cover all of those different issues. And the very first thing I'm going to do is just show you a little bit of a cartoon.
What does it take to capture every lead? Whether or not you have a dedicated staff of intake specialists, there will be inevitable illnesses, turnover, departmental overflows, or even minimally trained intake specialists that could slow your response times, causing callers to give up and move on to the next firm. Don't let prospective clients get away. Let Alert Communications help. Alert Communications is a legal services call center, ensuring you always capture the leads you need, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, after hours, on weekends, and on holidays. Alert Communications is ready to partner with you, offering customized intakes, contract services, and the ability to handle your overflow calls in English and Spanish, all from our U.S.-based call center. Our incredibly low call abandon rate, immediate responses to web, text, and chat inquiries, and our unique tracking and follow-up system produces optimum conversion rates. And our empathetic intake specialists pave the way to take your leads from initial contact through signed contract. Capture every lead and maximize your ROI by adding alert communications as an extension of your law firm.
So I think the most important thing actually is you get kind of an overview of what we're about is evaluating your intake process and discussing, how do you actually do that? Well, really the most critical starting point is really being open to the fact that what you have going on in your law firm may not be perfected, and being open to all necessary change to really improve your intake and your marketing returns on investment by being able to convert more clients. So the first question comes up is, should you evaluate yourself? And the reason why that's such a critical question is because when you evaluate yourself, you only can really do that is if you really know every single process available, every system available that would actually make your intake better within your law firm to make sure you never miss leads and you can immediately respond to those leads and those clients. The very first and most important question basically is, do you know how many leads you are losing? And why that's the most important question is that we've talked to many law firms that can say, hey, we receive this many leads per day, and we look like we're converting about this many leads per day on an average. But when we ask them, do you know how many leads you're losing? After hours, weekends, holidays, or how many leads basically you never get to just because the phone rings too long and so forth. Nobody knows that. We haven't found one law firm that can really nail that number down about how many are lost. So the key is basically if you're losing leads, that would actually be considered a bad client experience because the client, the potential new client for the law firm, thinks that's not good. And so they've left your law firm as an original lead coming in. So the next question is, what is your plan to improve client experience when they first respond to your marketing and to actually coming into you as a lead? And if your current solution is just to spend more on marketing, to spend your way through it, that actually, on the return on investment for your law firm, really doesn't make sense. So let's discuss a little bit about why. In the business world, the winning business strategy, and it doesn't matter if it's Ford, or if it's IBM or Xerox, or if it's Toyota, is you have the company or the product, and then you have their marketing, and then you have sales. And those are the three cornerstones. That's really the triangle of every business that's out in the marketplace today. That's simplified, but that's actually the truth. In the law firm, it looks like this. You have the law firm, and then effective marketing, Firmidable, doing all the marketing and driving leads to your law firm. And then you have 24/7 optimized intake. And the intake is what is called in the law firm the replacement for sales, but it really is sales. So let's talk a little about that winning legal strategy and how you can arrive at that. So when you look at optimizing your marketing investment, the first thing you have is marketing costs. And you know that's something you work out with Firmidable, and you have your budget that you spend. And then you have your return on investment goals, what you're looking for there and how many clients you're going to get. And only in your law firm do you know how much each case is worth, but it's good to have that number. How much is each case worth? And there's going to be a separation for what cases are worth. Like Social Security and Disability, the cases are worth X on an average. And in personal injury for our law firm, if you're doing personal injury, then they are going to be worth X, but it's good to know that. So what's key is that, and this is just common sense, but every lead converted into a client improves the return on an investment. That means every lead counts, that no lead should get away, which means that when you're building your systems out to respond to these, immediate live response for every lead is critical. And that means for you to be able to respond, that optimizing every facet of intake is absolutely essential, that there's never any gaps or holes in your intake system. So,
Tom, can I interject a thought before we move on?
Sure.
I'd like to tell you something that I see. So because so many of our law firms that are doing digital campaigns are saying, hey, we're just doing it internally with our intake team, they tell us to restrict the digital ads to daytime only. They're office hours, right? Because they don't have a team at night. But if you think about how most digital ads are priced, it's in an auction. Google runs an auction. The more popular, the terms are, and also the more popular the time of day is, the more you're going to pay, because in an auction, the more popular, it drives up the price. So I actually think we could lower our cost if we could go 24/7 instead of being restricted to daytime. because most law firms, I don't know about most, but tons of law firms take daytime only. And I think that'd be a way, when we're talking about the marketing cost, to bring them down if we could go 24/7.
And I agree with that. So we actually, see this with, hundreds of law firms actually controlling their marketing spend based upon their availability of their staff. And we agree with you on that too, Nathan. So, but let's talk about this. I think it's important to talk about intake of sales. And we know that in two markets, both in the legal market and in the medical market, they call sales intake because it's not appropriate to talk about something legal or about something medical as sales where you're trying to bring in a client to that type of firm. But we're only talking about legal today. And legal basically is intake, and it's called intake appropriately. But internally, inside of a law firm, it needs to be treated like a sales department. Intake is the driver for revenue and for the return on investment, meaning that your sales department and your intake department, if they never convert those leads that are being produced, regardless of how good your law firm is, obviously you're not going to have any return on investment in anything you do. The next step is really critical, that not everyone is qualified to be an expert at intake and a salesperson within your law firm. Intake managers, remember, are sales managers. So it's actually really critical, too, that your intake managers also have the experience of running the intake team and actually watching their numbers and how they're dealing with people and listening to them and actually putting best practices in place as well. Now, this is what we see that happens in the legal world, which is really kind of unique to the legal markets, that often everyone is thrown into intake and sales in a law firm. So anybody available, attorneys, clerks, receptionists, paralegals, office managers, the COO, the CFO, marketing, whoever's available at that time, because other people aren't available, or just on a normal basis, are actually put into the legal intake area. The problem with that is if they're not truly a sales type person and they haven't been trained correctly to actually handle those intakes appropriately, to be able to sell the law firm, to have creative urgency, to deal with people about the case, the type that they're on, that it's going to lower your conversions. The other thing that happens is that multitasking definitely, we know, lowers conversions. So if somebody's coming from prepping a case to go to trial and they're in a rush to get that done, which is often the case, let's say a paralegal, and then they're asked to move from that task and take the next call, even to have the right mentality to deal with the type of case that has to do with disability or an injured person or a personal injury, and having the right mindset correct, will lower the conversion if it's not the proper way you answer the phone. So we boil this down to really what we think. There's only two things that really matter. First of all, instant live response to every type of lead. That means it doesn't matter when somebody calls into your office that the phone is picked up, which may not be possible in your office, and that's what we're talking about, the supporting. Or if they actually send a web lead in as well, or web form or a chat, and they have expressed interest, that you have an instant live response to every type of lead. So there's there's expert intake specialists, there's no response delays 24/7, 365, and it's also bilingual. And I'm going to talk about bilingual here a little bit. There are an awful lot of law firms that we know that actually do not take care of Spanish leads, and that's not necessarily a problem. But if you have a Spanish speaker and you do not have a partner law firm that you can refer to, then really that marketing ROI decreases, because you could do a fee split on them and a referral and actually refer it out. So we would recommend that bilingual be taken care of. It is important to know that we are bilingual at Alert Communications as well. And also, then you have to have technical solutions in place as well. The AI is just artificial intelligence, which just means that you have automatic ways to actually get text and emails to people to express interest. That's extremely important for web leads. And when web leads come in and you actually make a phone call outbound to them, if you don't reach them, then a text and email goes as well, so they can correspond with you that way as well, because that's just the way the marketing works these days, that people want to correspond that way. Or if they call back the text number, that would actually be registered to them as a lead, and you'd be able to communicate with you too to get them an intake. But the whole goal, number one, is instant live response and to get them into the intake. And then two, stop the client shopping process with proper intake methods. So often what we see with intake is that at the end of the conversation or the end of the intake, it's just very loose, meaning that there are so many people basically that at the end of the call, we'll go through a qualifying intake and then say, hey, you know, we're going to have somebody get back to you next week. And in the world of intake and in the world of sales, that's really an ineffective way to convert that lead. You want to lock them down better. So we'll talk about how to lock them down better than just having to keeping that open. So let's talk about stopping the shopping. When we talk about stopping the shopping with clients calling your law firm, you've already spent the money on marketing. Now they're in your law firm and you want to stop them. We don't care how you get the lead, meaning that if Firmidable was doing any offline advertising, TV, radio, billboards, banners, any online digital web forms, social media, chat, text, email, anything like that, or any phone calls coming in for referrals, any of those leads, once they get into your law firm, you have to have methods in place to make sure that they are calling you and they don't, after they hang up with you, move on to another law firm. They stay with you. So let's talk about how you do that. First of all, on the initial response with experts. So we talked about not multitasking, making sure you have the right people in the right seats in your law firm, that you're covered 24/7, 365. But the initial caller experience is critical. So let's talk about it from their perspective. So often, what I hear basically is everybody talking about from their perspective in the intake team, but you have to put yourself really into the perspective of the inbound person that's looking for help from your law firm. This is what they expect. They expect immediate live response. They expect when they call in not to be put on hold indefinite times and periods, that somebody actually picks up the phone when they call in. They expect that person to be expertly trained. And that person knows, and what you want to have is people that can build rapport and trust through their listening skills and their questioning as well. That person also that picks up the phone should be trained in empathy, proper psychology of dealing with injured people or the type of client you're dealing with, even if it's criminal law per se. They have to have the right psychology and how to deal with those in the listening, and call control so the calls don't wander on forever and you can bring them back to your questions. Also, the use of legal terminologies to build client confidence in your law firm and to create a superb and professional initial prospective new client experience. So put yourself in the caller's experience and make sure that your intake department is built to give them the very best experience. And if you were calling a law firm and you were injured or for a disability or for anything else, what would you want to receive? And if you really take it from that perspective, you'll see there's a lot of areas to improve. So let's talk about removing bad experiences. Now, there's a lot of words on this page, but it's important we cover this. When a prospective new client actually submits a web form or calls in, this is what they consider a bad experience. Slow answer speeds, drop calls, long hold times, negative voice tones. And by the way, most negative voice tones come from rushed people that are multitasking or not prepped to do their job. It could also be an attorney that actually takes that call that's in a rush to get out to go to trial. Lack of attention, care, and empathy to the client. They call in and they speak Spanish and nobody speaks Spanish in the firm. They can't even refer them to anybody. The lack of legal knowledge or terminology. Slow or no callbacks if you promise a time to call back. Lack of listening in general if you're rushed on the phone. Or at the end of the call when they've gone through the entire story and you've done your intake, they just aren't clear about what's going to happen next. If they're not clear, that becomes a bad experience as well. All of those things drive them to keep shopping you and go to other law firms. So, law firm bad experience now becomes lead losses, negative reviews, loss of clients, low conversions, marketing return on investment is diminished, loss of referrals from the clients you would have sold and opportunities. The call abandonment rate, which means that you're not picking up calls in time and people are hanging up on the 4th or 5th or 6th ring, or they're being on hold for too long. Obviously equals revenue loss. It creates turnover issues too because pressure within the law firm is put on people. We see this all the time because of lack of training. Also, you don't know what you don't know. And we're bringing this up because of the fact that what's critical in intake is that you won't even know how many clients you've lost if this is a constant problem within your law firm. You won't know all the people that is hung up or on hold, and you won't have any way to measure that. So what that means is that all the money and all the investment and all the funds you've given to marketing, you're now marketing for your competition down the street because you didn't effectively handle that client. And that really is a disaster that can be managed by just effective intake for you. Then the marketing agency has a bad experience as well. Why? Well, what we see is then the law firms put pressure on the marketing firm that their campaigns are not working, but it's not generally the campaigns, it's actually the intake within the law firm. So the return on investment to the law firms, is reduced, so they put pressure on the marketing. By the way, Google rankings are also reduced. You should know that in the new Google search engines and their new algorithms for artificial intelligence, they actually are calling out to people that advertise that say call anytime or open 24/7 with their automation. And if you do not pick up the phone and you have an answering machine, it's going to affect your rankings on the first page, which is a big deal, which just means you need to have live answering all the time. Campaign restrictions are also due to the law firm intake and the low bandwidth or effectiveness. The campaign success is reduced, the loss of law firm clients, but basically it just doesn't work unless the intake is fixed. So properly handled clients equals revenue and referrals. And that's the key, is to take care of, get rid of all those bad experiences and treat the potential client just like you'd want to be treated if you were injured or you were talking about a situation as well. All right. Let's talk about stopping the shopping with no retainers. And the reason why I'm bringing up no retainers is that not often we don't always do retainers for personal injury, don't always do retainer systems for Social Security and disability or other types of law firms as well. But when we're not using retainers to convert and actually answer for a law firm and sign them up, you must think about what is the goal. And the goal basically is on the very first initial call, that if you look on the left-hand side here, that it's very clear to the potential new client at the end of the intake what's going to happen. This means that you must meet their expectations. They want to know what's going to happen after your first call. So if you're not going to try to sign them by texting over a retainer to them or emailing them a retainer that you're going to do, let's say by a DocuSign, then you should book an appointment. There's really no in-between here. There's no gray area. They called you to talk to you. It sounds like they have a good case. And if you don't set an appointment, it becomes unclear to them. They could easily call another law firm. So book an appointment for them to either return their call and have a call back, or an in-office visit or an in-home visit. But don't skip that step. If it's vague, you're going to definitely have some attrition from these qualified clients just because it wasn't clear, and they're going to call a law firm that makes it clear to them. The second thing you can do is warm transfer. So if you have people inside your law firm, or if we were taking these calls, we could actually warm transfer to an available staff member that could immediately talk to them and actually set up those appointments as well if we were doing that after hours, weekends, or holidays. Or if you were doing that internally and you could take them to a next step internally and you could push them down the line, remember, that's why they called you. They called you to get help, so you want to give them help and kind of lock down what's going to happen next. If we're using retainers, or if you're using retainers, we recommend the whole goal of this mentally is to convert on initial contact. So if you have a qualified lead and you have basically your retainer and your fee agreement available, the goal is to sign all qualified leads immediately after intake. This is the highest conversion possible. And the reason why is in the intake world, which is really the sales world, when you do not break contact with your client before your potential client, before they're actually a signed client, and you qualify them, and if you keep them on the phone and you text or email over a DocuSign of your retainer to actually sign, the retention rate goes up dramatically. Those numbers are around 45, jumping to about 75% or 70% on that conversion ratio if you can keep them on the phone versus breaking contact. It's actually a huge difference. So we actually can do this for law firms, send over their law firm retainer, but it's generally done in the personal injury world where there's a contingent fee, and it's not done as much in Social Security and disability because there's usually a deeper dive and questionnaire done with a law firm. Sometimes it's done in workers' comp. It's generally not done in criminal law, but it can be done in personal injury, and you could actually do this with personal injury inside your office as well as not break contact. If texting the retainer over is not an option, then you want to email that. That's a second best conversion. And if texting or emailing is not an option, FedEx their retainer fee or agreement, or you could actually set up an investigator to go to their home. Those two are up there with texting as well. But the FedExing is not as good as texting or sending an investigator out. And also with your retainer, it's always good, we think, to actually attach the retainer for DocuSign, the HIPAA or the high-tech forms to sign as well, and have them e-signed on the spot. So let's talk about basically when we talk about retainer services, what the goals are. It doesn't matter if it's phone calls or web contact forms or text leads or email leads or dead lists that are being outbound called or any other lists that are being outbound called, or if you drop calls or if it's chat leads, basically every form of lead possible, that the goal basically is to e-sign them, and it's a digital signature. And that is actually the way you have the highest conversions of converting on the very first qualifying intake to actually convert them over. FedEx falls into the second spot, and those are the highest conversions you can to sign retainers on the very first call.
How can you assure your law firm won't lose potential clients? It's a simple two-step process using Alert Communications Contract Services. First, you need immediate lead response by a qualified intake specialist 24/7. Second, you must have the ability to get a contract signed on the initial call. The highest marketing conversions come from turning a lead into a client on the first call. If you do not respond immediately, the conversion rates drop significantly, decreasing your marketing ROI. Alert Communications responds immediately to all leads at all times, whether they come from TV ads, radio, billboards, social media, web ads, or dead list campaigns. Combine that with expert intake services and the ability to text contracts while on the initial call, and you have the most optimized system available. This two-step process drives the highest revenue possibilities to your law firm. Capture every lead and maximize your ROI by adding Alert Communications as an extension to your law firm.
All right, so that kind of gives you an idea of kind of the simple process is what it is. There's a lot of systems and technical abilities behind your system that you need to make that work effectively, which is a whole presentation by itself. So we'll get into some of it. One of the key things that we have a feature called Smart Lead Tracking. And what this really means is multiple attempts to track, follow up, and chase to conversion. What that means is that when a web lead comes in and you're making outbound calls, that we follow up on these web leads to initiate live contact and complete the intake. So we're doing that to reach them on the phone. Live calls combined with text and emails improves the contact rate from 40% to 80%. So I think this is actually really critical to actually talk about what this is. So what that means basically is that we actually went out to, we do millions of intakes per year for our clients. And we actually measured when an intake form basically comes in, a web form comes in, either a chat lead or a web contact form, and we outbound call them, you're only going to get them on the phone immediately 40% of the time, and that's it. And if you follow that up with a text and an email, that actually raises the conversion because now they have different ways to correspond with you, and they also can get back to you even later the next day, and you already have something out to them that actually has your phone number and a way for them to contact you back. But if you do multiple attempts on the live calls, the texts and the emails, you will actually raise the 40% initial contact rate on a web lead to 80%, which is an absolute game changer. Now, what happens is that scheduled follow-up optimizes conversions, and what happens is immediate calls or response to outbound calls for web leads are critical. The multiple attempts, like we talked about, is really 2 times the usual results you get, and you utilize the best times for follow-up. And the method for these attempts are always mixing it up: calls, texts, and emails. But the key is this that we know is that actually following up people at nighttime and on the weekends is critical to conversion. If you skip just that, you'll never get to 80%. So you want to have systems in place, basically, that actually do that. We will tell you that text should be able to handle volume, multiple takers, logins, rotation, correspondence. Just letting you know that the texting system is actually a very sophisticated texting system, so it always is matching that person's phone number to the lead if they come back and forth, and you can go back and forth and correspond, but the goal is always to get them into live intake. But just by employing smart lead tracking and all the systems in place, a thing that we do here at Alert Communications, you can take your contact rate on new leads from 40% to 80%, which obviously means if it doubles the live intakes, you're going to double the amount of clients you get from that. That is a huge game changer for return on investment. We've been running this program for about 1.5 years, and it has been a huge change for law firms actually to deploy this. Another thing that's critical is integrations. This really equals that no leads are lost, meaning that no leads really going to paper, it's going directly into a system. So they really ensure that all your leads go direct into a system like a CRM or case management software. So what we do is we integrate with all marketing sources. So first of all, calls coming in are going to be forwarded directly to us. We'll have time parameters if we're going to be doing that, let's say overflow during the day or even 24/7. Or if we're going to be doing it after hours, 24/7, 365 on weekends and holidays and things like that. We'll have a way for that timing to be worked so it's forwarded at the proper time and we take the calls at the right time. Any web contact forms, any email leads, any social media, any chat, we need to have live transfers. There are chat companies out there that do live transfers, which just means that when a chat comes in and the person is interested in talking to the law firm, if they're available to talk right now, instead of having to wait for somebody to call them back, if they say, yes, I would like to talk to somebody right now, the phone would actually ring into the prospective new client's ear on their phone they're chatting from. It would also ring basically into either our intake or into your intake, but we have it set up so it's integrated with us in a live connect. So they go from chat immediately to call. What we do with the data when these leads come in is we immediately export and push this intake data to your business automatically. We do that really, we have 3 ways to get this information to you. One is real time. We're emailing over all the intake transcript data to you immediately after the intake is completed. Secondly, you have access to a call logger and recorded calls where that's actually allowed. You can actually listen to the recorded call. But 2, we can actually sync up with all these different partners that are out there. And by the way, this is only a partial list. There's probably another 30 more of all these different case management software systems that are out there, like, you know, Law Ruler or CasePeer or Captora or Smart Advocate or Salesforce or you name it. And what we do is we push the lead contact data straight in there so your people in your office don't have to key this data in and nothing gets lost. Now you can start measuring all the leads coming in and assuring they're all being handled properly and nothing just goes on paper and doesn't get put into that because people get busy or just forget to do it. So integrations are extremely critical whenever it's possible. Let's talk about response time management. This kind of came up in what Nathan was talking to about the example earlier as well. But if you can look at this, this is such a dramatic illustration. This was done by an MIT study about what response time is like when how it falls off. So often we talk to law firms, and when they start talking about web leads, we ask them, how long does it take you to respond to a web lead? Their answer it can be, well, we immediately respond, and then it becomes, is that during working hours or 24/7? Say during working hours. What does immediate mean to you? And they usually say like 1 to 3 hours, which is typical. Some law firms tell us 24 hours, but look at the fall off. Look at the first chart. In the first hour, if that many leads were available, look at the drop down in 2 hours, how many people you're going to contact by just waiting the second hour. And then 3 hours, and it just goes down to infinite to 0. If you wait this long, especially for somebody in the Social Security, disability, or personal injury market, when they're looking to talk to somebody because something's going on in their family or to themselves personally, they expect a live response. And if you go down to the bottom one, this is by minutes. So look at the contact rate if you respond within 5 minutes. We respond within 1 to 3 minutes in alert communications to these with both phone calls, text, and emails. That's all immediately happening, like immediately. All right. So 5 minutes, look at how many leads you retain. 10 minutes, look at the fall off. That's how dramatic it is. This goes back to the smart lead tracking and how you actually respond, that there are so many leads many law firms actually miss just by not responding in a timely manner.
All right, so the goal here basically is just reaching your full potential. To improve is to change. To be perfect is to change often. Winston Churchill said that. We actually think there's basically multiple reasons to be actually looking at your intake systems all the time to see how you can improve. And let's just talk about an honest evaluation. Really, the key is basically for improvement is not simply to just keeping the status quo. It's a decision that change is not really possible or necessary, and thus it stops improvement. So you really want to think about looking at yourself, about having an honest evaluation about saying, we're going to open up everything. We talked about this earlier. And remember, you know what you know when you're looking at intake within a law firm, but you don't know what you don't know, even like where you're losing leads or how you're losing leads, and putting systems and all the processes in place so you now know how to measure that will prevent you from losing those leads that are going to other law firms. Also, awareness of necessary changes likely to come from others looking in. and we want to remove the protective silos and create collaboration. So that's one of the things we want to take about when we're looking at an honest evaluation, how to evaluate intake within your law firm. So a deep dive is necessary, and that's really where, looking at the intake department, we identify with you as a law firm the strengths, and the marketing firm as well, weaknesses and immediate needs. Identify lead capturing and response systems, or the lack of, so we're looking for all the gaps and holes. We identify the call and web response times during and after hours. We identify ability to track and follow up leads, if any. And then we identify ability to measure lead conversions and lead losses. So remember too that really driving revenue to your through your intake, the only thing that really matters is math when you look at this. So this is a quote by Chris Rock. We kind of think that's funny, but everything else is debatable. Let's just look at some math. If you're measuring lead conversion here, these are just some numbers, and these are the things you deserve when you're actually driving leads into your law firm. This kind of shows you here that basically what we have going on here is that if 94 leads came in and 18 basically robo numbers were there, 76 came in, disqualified leads were 31, qualified leads were 45. Out of the qualified leads that came in, 59% basically were going to be converted. A contract was sent through an e-sign that we were doing retainers, and 31 of those contracts were signed you with 89% conversion. But these are the type of numbers as a law firm you deserve, and you should be watching within yours as well. These are things that we measure as well. This is another one. I won't get into this. This is just web leads coming in. It's the same type of thing. You should look at all these numbers. The total number of new leads, what's not a lead, the net number of leads, disqualified leads, those that actually refused intake if you tried to reach them, how many qualified out of all the total amount of leads after all of those things, and how many you converted should always be numbers at your fingertips, and these are reports that we provide. So just remember, with intake algebra, basically 4% increase is likely. It's just by actually buttoning all these holes up, or we actually do this for people, and more than likely, it's probably 8 to 20% of the leads being lost. And you can see if the average fee per client was $12,000, that would equal $48,000. If the average fee per client was $120,000, which we see in mass tort, then it would be $480,000 on 100 leads alone, with just a 4% increase. So the numbers always make sense. And the reason why they always make sense is we're just like this little tiny fee at Alert Communications compared to everything else. And to actually patch all these holes up and actually get you this revenue into your law firm and help do that. We have about a 99% call lead capture benchmark. That's what we use. We want to be plus or minus 3%. The industry is over 8% loss. We actually hover around plus or minus 1% with all of our systems we have in place to make sure all leads are captured and responded to. So optimizing intake means that calls are live answered in under 3 rings. You need to know after 3 rings what happens. We actually recommend putting the recording there that actually basically says, we promise we'll be with you with a customized message from the law firm principal. We'll be right with you. That would actually transfer to us at that point, and we would actually be, their hold times would never be over 15 seconds. Drop caller ID calls that, caller ID, we're going to outbound call them with an immediate callback system. We never wait for the client to call them back. Neither should you. As well as call and are called immediately for web leads 24/7, 365, all the time. There's never a delay to actually call, text, and email them. Chat response, the same thing, 24/7, 365. And then you have automation wrapped around that with texting and emailing these people that don't pick up the phone on the first call or on chat, so they have another way to contact you and to set up a time for an intake, especially if it's late at night or on the weekends. So this is the winning strategy. You take the law firm, you combine that with Firmidable and their great marketing and driving leads into your law firm, and you then combine that with expert intake and lead conversion solutions combined with your intake of your law firm, and it's just going to equal a lot more clients and revenue. So the other thing we wanted to talk about is the lead response during disasters. We actually have triple carrier fell over here, so for the AT&T, Sprint, and Verizon. So if a telecom ever goes down, we also have full site power backup, which we use during the fires. But you can think about too, with all of these solutions, basically, that the lead response for you is if there's something that happens during a hurricane and you can't do that, if you were using this after hours, you can always all forward all lines to Alert Communications all the time, make sure you never miss any leads. Our mission is your mission. high quality in the intakes, matching what you're doing internally, high tech with texting, emailing, responding, and following up and tracking everything, driving more revenue to your law firm, and also very high security with all the leads. All your leads always remain with your law firm. We do not sell leads at Alert Communications at all, so all leads always stay with your law firm. This is our company location in Camarillo, California, between LA and Santa Barbara. We have 50,000 square foot office, and all of our staff is under one roof in the United States. People ask us that all the time if everybody's here, and we are. And we've been actually partnering with law firms, and we are been in business since 1965. And we basically team with you to grow your business intelligently. And we either do that full time or we do it with the overflow, after hours, weekends, and holidays. It's your choice on how you use us to make sure you don't miss any leads. And that usually happens with the discovery process. So thank you for your attention. Sorry for that glitch there. And we can see if there's any questions here.
Hey, Tom, we did have a question. This attorney said he did like the idea of 24/7. He definitely could see how that could be helpful, and he had two questions related to it. One, he wanted you to elaborate what exactly is the deliverable. Are you just going to capture contact info and hand it over to them? Are you going to do a complete intake, make an appointment? He doesn't really quite understand that part. And then the second part was, and how does he get an idea of the cost? I'm sure you've never heard that before.
Yeah, so those are great questions. So let me take the first one. The first one is, how do we handle intakes? So we actually work with law firms however they want us to work with them, meaning that if we're taking simple messages and we're actually forwarding that into a law firm, we can do that. However, I will say that the law firms that are the most successful use us with a more detailed intake, so we build with rapport with the client. So when the intakes are designed, we customize this with a law firm, and we actually work with them on this. We have every intake possible here, you can imagine. And if a call comes in, we answer the phone as the law firm, so we're answering as the law firm. And if they say, for instance, Social Security disability, we can go over to a customized Social Security disability intake and take that intake down all the way through, and then move that over to the law firm when it's complete. The other thing we can do is, if it was personal injury, actually move over to a personal injury intake if they actually said they were in a car wreck or an auto accident, and actually move over to a personal injury or even specifically an auto accident. So we have general intakes we do for law firms. We can take messages. We do general intakes, and we also do specific intakes. And at the very end of the intake, we can either warm transfer to available staff if they are available, or we actually automatically email over the email transcript to one or more people in the law firm, so they see each intake transfer coming through, because they may want to jump on something they think is catastrophic, or then they need to call like at 10 p.m. on Friday. If there was a catastrophic injury or somebody's in the emergency room and those calls are coming in. I hope that explains and answers that. And then the second question was cost. Cost basically is based upon the law firm and their volume. So we have three different cost centers here. One is building out and programming for law firms and building the whole system out. We charge per minute, and it's based upon the volume that you're at. So what we generally do is we do a discovery call with the law firm just to find out how they want to use us. And then when we use that, they commit to, actually, we want to do this. We say, this is what it's going to cost to program and build it for you, but we're going to charge you per minute. We actually bill per quarter minute, so we micro bill to make sure you're not overcharged. And we bill per minute based upon the volume, and we have volume blocks. So the way I can get to really pricing and actually tell you what the price is, because it's not the same for everyone, is to actually have a discovery call, spend some time with the law firm. That's all free, give you some consulting to go through that. But I will say that people that are associated with Firmidable will actually get a discounted rate. So we can actually talk about that too.
Okay, Tom, let's squeeze in one. Hey, thanks, Tom. Let me squeeze in one more. Remember you talked about pre-signing up the retainers to the clients and signing them up. What if they decide they don't want the case? That made this person nervous. Yeah,
it's a great question. First of all, when we actually send retainers out for law firms on behalf of them, and it's the law firm's actual retainer, it's never signed by the law firm. It's only signed by the prospective new client, and usually an appointment set to go over that contract with them by the law firm and to go over their case one more time before the law firm accepts the retainer. What it does do by them, the retainer being signed by the prospective new client is they're not going to shop until they talk to the law firm. And likely, if they don't have a case for multiple reasons, it may not be a case for any law firm. So that's the way that works to protect that. And so I'll give an example for one client. It happened to be a mass tort situation, but we signed 22,000 of these retainers for them over a 3-month period. And it's never signed by the law firm because they go into review afterwards. There's a 2-step process we can use where we sign that gets signed by the prospective new client. We deliver that to the law firm, but before the call's over, we actually book an appointment and we sync with the calendar of the law firm, and we can set up a follow-up call, which actually works real well, or an open-ended time where the law firm's going to call them back to go over the retainer with them and the next steps, and that works real well as well.
All right, thanks, Tom. Hey, it was terrific. That's all the time we have. If you have additional questions, Tom or I would be happy to talk with you directly after the program. As a reminder, once you leave today's webinar, please give us your feedback on the survey, the topic today, and how can we do better, and what would you like to see in the future. So on behalf of Tom, Alert Communications, and the entire team here at Firmidable, thanks for joining us today. Now go out there and get some great clients.